The billionaire's silent betrayal. A pregnant wife's radical act. Hook. Imagine this. A soft, relentless drizzle against the sprawling glass windows of an opulent estate in the exclusive Hamptons. Inside, a pregnant woman stands alone, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames in the fireplace, her heart a leaden weight of confusion and raw betrayal. For weeks, her millionaire husband hasn't spoken to her, leaving her adrift in a gilded cage of broken promises. Was their love simply an illusion, or was his chilling neglect a sign of something far more sinister? What she never expected was that her next defiant step, handing him divorce papers, would ignite a chain of events no one, especially not him, could have possibly foreseen. If you've ever felt trapped in a relationship, hit that like button. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single twist in this dramatic tale. Leave a comment below. What would you do if your partner suddenly went silent? The golden cage begins to rust. Olivia Reynolds had never been the type to chase after extravagance. Growing up in a cozy neighborhood in Seattle, Washington, she had a humble upbringing, something her father, Michael Sterling, prided himself on. He worked in construction, often coming home smelling of sawdust and sweat, yet always bearing a warm smile for his family. Her mother, Susan Sterling, was an empathetic nurse at the local hospital, known for her gentle touch and listening ear. Olivia's childhood was filled with modest joys, volunteering at the local animal shelter, dancing on the green lawns in summer, and picking berries at an orchard each fall. That unassuming life changed dramatically when she met the tall, charismatic, and fabulously wealthy Julian Vance. Nicknamed Jules by his high society friends, Julian was the heir to the Vance Group, an international conglomerate dabbling in real estate, cutting-edge technology, and private equity. While public tabloids swooned over his refined features and philanthropic work, those who knew him personally whispered about his steely ambition and relentless drive for success. Olivia first encountered Julian in New York City at a charity gala hosted by the prominent Harrington family. She was there to volunteer, never imagining she'd catch the eye of one of the wealthiest bachelors in the country. That night, Julian mesmerized her with his stories of traveling the world and investing in up-and-coming entrepreneurs. More than his fortune, Olivia admired his wit and the way he carried himself with thoughtful composure. He seemed genuinely curious about her life in Seattle. A whirlwind courtship followed, extravagant dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, weekend getaways to the Hamptons, and then a lavish wedding at a historic cathedral in Manhattan. Despite her parents' initial unease, they ultimately trusted that Julian's devotion to Olivia was genuine. Yet as months turned into years, and the public glimpsed them only at high-profile events, cracks began to form in the fairy tale marriage. Olivia often felt isolated in Julian's pristine marble mansion in the Hamptons. She went from being a nurse's daughter in Seattle to the wife of a mogul who often didn't come home until after midnight. His affections, once abundant, grew sporadic and then distant. The staff, including a discreet housekeeper named Maria, tiptoed around Olivia, aware of her sadness. Despite the gilded artwork and plush rugs, the corridors often felt cold and empty. When Olivia discovered she was pregnant, she hoped it would rekindle the warmth she'd once found in Julian. She imagined a future where their child might break the monotony of wealth and ambition, and perhaps spark a sense of family closeness that Julian had missed in his own strict upbringing under Eleanor Vance, a stern matriarch and Julian's mother. But instead of joy, Julian grew strangely silent. He refused to attend the first ultrasound appointment, citing a conference in Tokyo. Weeks passed with minimal conversation, and Olivia found herself sobbing in the hush of her bedroom, cradling the tiny bump that was their baby. Now she stood in front of the enormous fireplace, gazing at the golden flames that flickered across the ivory walls. A storm brewed outside, mirroring the turmoil in her heart. Julian had been away for nearly 2 weeks, neglecting not just her phone calls and messages, but even the basic decency of letting her know when he'd be back. Her mind brimmed with questions. Had he stopped loving her entirely? Was he hiding something more than just business obligations? Little did she know that she was on the brink of discovering a labyrinth of secrets that would shatter the very foundation of her life with Julian Vance. The ghost in the mansion late one evening. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and headlights flashed across the circular driveway as a sleek black limousine pulled up in front of the mansion. Olivia watched from an upstairs window. She pressed a hand to her growing belly, feeling a swirl of dread and relief. At least he was home. Down in the foyer, she found Julian handing his coat to Maria. He looked tired, but there was an unfamiliar tension in the tightness of his jaw and the furrow of his brow. Olivia summoned her courage. "You're back," she whispered, the echo of the cavernous hall swallowing her words. Julian barely met her eyes. "Long flights, back-to-back meetings," he said, voice clipped. "I need a shower and some rest." They faced each other, an invisible chasm between them. Olivia wanted to ask if he was okay, to press him about why he hadn't been returning her calls. Instead, she simply nodded and stood aside as he ascended the grand staircase. Night stretched on. Olivia lay awake in bed, but Julian never joined her. By morning, she found him in the downstairs study with the door half shut. She could hear him speaking to someone on the phone, his voice strained. "I'm telling you, Ben, this is not the time. I need space. Can't you see that? I'll figure it out. Just leave me be for a while." Olivia tried to ignore the knot forming in her stomach. She thought about confronting him right then, demanding answers. But she hesitated. Since discovering she was pregnant, she wanted to keep her stress levels down for the baby's sake. Resentment mingled with concern as she walked away, the hush of the corridor magnifying every uncertain thought. Over the next few days, Julian drifted in and out of the house like a ghost. He made numerous phone calls, each time leaving in a rush, sometimes in the middle of the night. He was always evasive when she tried to talk, replying with short, rehearsed lines. "Business never stops." "I'm sorry, but I have urgent matters." Or simply, "Not now, Olivia." The staff exchanged worried glances behind closed doors. Maria sometimes found Olivia crying quietly in the library. The cook, an elderly woman named Elena, started preparing light soups and calming teas, hoping to ease Olivia's tension. No one dared question Julian directly. His reputation for being unyielding was legendary. One morning, as rain pelted the windows, Olivia grew fed up with the endless excuses. Gathering her courage, she confronted Julian in the foyer, where he seemed to be hurriedly packing a small suitcase. "Julian," she said firmly, "what's going on? I'm carrying your child. I deserve to know why you've been avoiding me, why you're leaving at all hours." He kept his gaze on his luggage. "I have crucial negotiations in London," he said mechanically. "I told you, business is complicated right now." "You've been gone for 2 weeks already," she replied, her voice trembling with pent-up frustration. "You ignore my texts, my calls. Do you have any idea how that feels?" He looked up at her for the first time in days. There was a flicker of something in his eyes, guilt, perhaps, or sorrow, but it vanished quickly. "You wouldn't understand the pressure I'm under," he said, grabbing the handle of his suitcase. "We'll talk when I'm back." She watched him leave, the heavy mahogany door closing behind him like the final note of a dirge. In that moment, Olivia felt a surge of anger she'd never before experienced. She refused to be relegated to a bystander in her own marriage. If Julian Vance wanted to lock himself away in a fortress of secrets, she would find a way to break it down or walk away altogether. Do you think Julian's excuses are genuine business pressure or a cover-up? Comment your thoughts below. Unveiling the deception, determined to get to the bottom of her husband's cryptic behavior, Olivia contacted the one person she trusted outside the empire, her old friend from Seattle, Maya Rodriguez. Maya was a journalist who had moved to New York for a reporting job with the City Chronicle. Over the years, they remained close, though their lives had diverged significantly. A few phone calls later, Maya arrived at the Hamptons mansion, her battered old Honda looking distinctly out of place among the luxury vehicles. Olivia greeted her at the door, pulling her friend into a tight embrace. "It's bad, Maya," Olivia confessed, voice quivering. The pair retreated to the privacy of a small sitting room near the back of the estate, far from the staff's prying eyes. Maya took out a notebook. "All right," she said in her direct journalist tone. "Tell me everything from the top." Olivia recounted the months of Julian's disappearing acts, the sudden phone calls, the rumored deals, and how his affection had withered almost overnight. Maya nodded, scribbling notes. "Have you considered that he might be seeing someone else?" Maya asked gently. Olivia flinched. Though the thought had crossed her mind, she resisted giving it form. "I don't know," she replied softly. "He claims it's business, but I can't shake the feeling there's more." Maya frowned. "I can do some digging." She paused before adding, "But you need to be prepared for whatever we might find." That same night, Maya slipped away to Manhattan. She reached out to her contacts, a private investigator named David Chen, and a few colleagues who specialized in corporate oversight. They started combing through financial records, property deeds, and recent business acquisitions tied to Julian Vance and the Vance Group. Within a week, Maya had a trove of unsettling information. Bank statements hinted at massive, unexplained withdrawals. Strange wire transfers to shell companies with nondescript names. A discreet offshore account in the Cayman Islands. But most importantly, rumors of a hidden relationship with a woman named Isabella Thorne, a chic fashion designer often seen at high society galas. When Maya hesitantly relayed this to Olivia, she saw her friend's face go pale. Olivia pressed a hand against her belly, as though protecting the child within from the shock of betrayal. "I need proof," Olivia said, fighting back tears. "I won't accuse my husband of something like that, unless I know for sure." "David's got photos," Maya whispered. "They've been spotted at a penthouse Julian's company bought in downtown Manhattan." Images soon arrived. Julian stepping out of a luxurious apartment, Isabella at his side, the two exchanging brief, intimate smiles. The timestamps showed Julian's presence on nights he had claimed to be away on urgent business. Olivia stared at the photos, feeling numb, anger, despair, heartbreak, all warring in her chest. But her thoughts shifted abruptly to her unborn child. She refused to let Julian reduce her life to a tragedy. Gathering all the strength she could muster, she told Maya, "I need to see a divorce attorney." Maya nodded, her eyes filled with sadness. "We can start right away." The fight for freedom, Olivia's appointment with a high-profile Manhattan divorce attorney, Ms. Evelyn Grant, came 2 days later. Evelyn's office exuded the polished elegance one would expect from a law firm catering to the wealthy. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city's skyline, and the plush furniture contrasted jarringly with Olivia's emotional turbulence. Evelyn listened intently as Olivia recounted the strange neglect, the potential affair, and the existence of hidden financial dealings. "I see," the attorney said at last, her voice calm and measured. It's not uncommon in marriages where there's a significant wealth disparity for one spouse to become isolated. The secrecy around finances suggests he may be funneling assets to protect them if you pursue legal action. Olivia swallowed hard. I'm worried about my future and the future of my child, she said, her voice breaking. Julian has all the power here. Evelyn leaned forward, hands clasped. Legally, that's not necessarily true. As his wife, you have claims to marital assets. The key is documentation. Every hidden account, every secret property. If it turns out he's diverting funds to cheat you out of your fair share, we can use legal channels to expose that. However, you need to be prepared for a bitter fight. Men like Julian seldom give in easily. Though she was terrified, Olivia found a flicker of resolve in Evelyn's words. I'll do whatever it takes, she said. She paused, tears threatening. I wanted a family. I didn't want a war. Evelyn offered a sympathetic smile. I know. Divorce is never easy, especially under these circumstances. My team and I will help you navigate this. But you must brace yourself. Julian may retaliate. He has vast resources and is well connected. Olivia left the law firm feeling both fortified and hollow, carrying a thick folder of documents. She'd need to review, sign, and assemble for court proceedings if things escalated. On the drive back to the Hamptons, her mind swirled with memories of her wedding day, Julian slipping a ring on her finger and promising love and devotion. Now that ring felt like a shackle tightening around her heart. Late the next evening, Julian finally returned home unannounced. As usual, Olivia was in the library, poring over the legal documents with trembling hands. She heard Julian's footsteps in the hallway and quickly tucked the papers under a large coffee table book about Renaissance art. Her heart pounded as he entered. What are you doing here in the dark? Julian asked, flipping on a lamp. Olivia forced a calm tone. Reading. Couldn't sleep. He looked as if he was about to say something, but changed his mind. An uneasy silence followed, broken only by the rustling of the curtains in the draft. Olivia gathered her courage. Julian, I want to talk about us. He stared at her for a moment, leaning on his armchair, loosening his tie. Fine, he said, sounding weary. Let's talk. She swallowed, her gaze steady. I'm worried about our marriage, about the baby. You're never around, and when you are, you barely look at me. What happened to us? He ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. I told you, he said. Work is complicated. The economy is shifting. Investors are restless. And I have obligations to my board, my family's legacy. Her temper flared. You mean your affair with Isabella Thorne? She demanded, voice shaking. Julian's eyes went wide. He opened his mouth to respond, but seemed at a loss for words. I know about the penthouse, Olivia pressed. I know you've been there with her. Julian shot to his feet, anger blazing on his face. You've been spying on me! Olivia glared at him, tears in her eyes. I wouldn't have had to if you'd been honest. You told me you cared about building our future, but you've been investing your time in someone else. She stopped, noticing that her shoulders were heaving, her chest tight with panic. Julian looked momentarily stricken. Then he turned away, fists clenched. It's not what you think, he muttered. Laura laughed bitterly. Really? You expect me to believe that? After weeks of silence, you're telling me I've got this wrong? He whirled around, eyes flashing. That penthouse is business-related. Isabella is just an associate. Don't insult me, Olivia cut in, voice trembling with both fury and heartbreak. You think I'm too naive or too stupid to see the truth? I have my own sources, Julian. You've betrayed me, and you've betrayed our child. For a moment, it looked like Julian might break down. A swirl of conflicted emotions played across his features. But then, as though flicking a switch, he hardened. Fine, he said, voice cold. If that's what you need to believe, so be it. Olivia took a shuddering breath. I'm not going to stay in this marriage if you treat me like some dispensable figurehead. I was your wife before I was your trophy. You have no idea what's really going on, he snapped, cutting her off. If you push me on this... He stopped himself, closing his eyes as if wrestling down an inner demon. Olivia's hands trembled at her sides. You'll what? Try to ruin me? You think I can't survive without your money? I have resources too, Julian. You're not the only one who can fight dirty. He glowered at her, then turned and strode out of the library, leaving behind a vortex of tension. Tears slid down Olivia's cheeks. She felt as if she'd been talking to a stranger, a man who was a far cry from the charming Julian she once knew. After a moment, she retrieved the hidden documents, her resolve doubling. If he wouldn't give her respect, she would take back her autonomy, even if it meant delivering an ultimatum in the form of divorce papers. The matriarch's trap. In the days that followed, Olivia braced herself for the worst. Julian moved to a guest room, an absurd arrangement, given that the estate had dozens of rooms he could choose from. They barely spoke, and when they did, it was curt and distant. She finally broke the news to her parents, Michael and Susan Sterling. Over a tearful phone call, they offered their unconditional support. Come home if you need to, Susan pleaded. We'll help you raise that baby with all the love in the world. Olivia thanked her mother, even as her heart ached. She knew returning to Seattle would be an admission of defeat in her mind. She wasn't ready for that yet. She also feared that Julian might leverage their child as a weapon. He had the means to hire the best attorneys, potentially complicating any custody arrangements. Still, she felt bolstered by her parents' love. Meanwhile, behind the gilded walls of the Vance dynasty, rumors began to swirl. Eleanor Vance, Julian's mother, was a formidable figure, rumored to control the family's empire from her estate in Newport. She despised anything that threatened the family's pristine image, and a messy divorce certainly qualified. When she got wind of the trouble brewing in the Hamptons, she ordered an urgent family meeting, summoning Julian, Olivia, and a cadre of Vance lawyers to her retreat. The last thing Olivia wanted was to face Eleanor's withering stare, but she agreed, hoping that maybe the Vance matriarch could talk some sense into her son, or at least confirm that Olivia had the right to step away from this toxic environment. As they boarded a private jet to Newport, Julian, sitting coldly across from her, Olivia felt her stomach knot with dread. She tried to focus on the surging life within her, reminding herself that the baby's well-being came first. The jet's engines roared, the cabin vibrating as they soared above the coastline. Her mind flicked through scenarios, questions swirling. Would Eleanor blame her for the marriage's downfall? Would she discover shocking secrets within the Vance empire that Julian had been trying to protect? By the time they touched down, Olivia had convinced herself that she was walking straight into a lion's den. Eleanor Vance greeted them at the doorstep of her imposing estate, a gray stone manor perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic. She wore a meticulously tailored pantsuit, her silver hair styled in a sleek chignon, her lips pressed into a thin line as she eyed Olivia's pregnant belly before turning to Julian. "This is a family matter," Eleanor said in a crisp tone. "Let's get inside." Olivia's gaze darted to Julian, who avoided her eyes. She swallowed hard and followed them into a grand sitting room where various Vance uncles, aunts, and cousins were gathered. The walls displayed oil paintings of ancestors going back generations, each subject exuding the same sense of stern authority. A team of lawyers waited behind a polished mahogany table. Eleanor wasted no time, addressing Olivia first. "I understand there have been disagreements in your household, my dear, but the Vanson name does not bout a scandal. We must handle this quietly." Olivia's blood simmered at Eleanor's condescension. "I appreciate your concern," she said, striving for composure. "But Julian's behavior, his absence, his neglect, it's made it impossible for us to continue as if everything is fine." Eleanor's eyes flashed. "Julian is a busy man. As the eldest son and heir, he carries responsibilities you could not imagine." Julian stood to the side, silent. Olivia clenched her hands, resisting the urge to lash out. "I don't doubt the weight he bears, but being busy doesn't excuse betrayal or emotional abandonment. We're having a child, and he hasn't even tried to be present." One of the family's lawyers, a man with thick glasses named Arthur Jenkins, cleared his throat. "Ms. Reynolds, if I may, we have settlement arrangements that could be made to ensure your comfort, as well as the child's, without the need for public legal proceedings. As you can imagine, a very public divorce would harm not only Julian's reputation, but also the family's business interests." Olivia's jaw clenched. "So you want me to quietly accept hush money and remain married in name only? That's not going to happen." She could almost feel the tension radiating from Julian, but he still said nothing. Eleanor's expression remained a mask of calm. "We're not suggesting that," Eleanor replied icily. "We're merely proposing that matters be handled discreetly. We're willing to grant you certain concessions." Olivia stared at them, heart pounding. "A child is not a concession. A marriage is not a bargaining chip. I have every right to a divorce if I choose." Eleanor interrupted. "This conversation is over. Julian, take her to the East Wing. We'll reconvene in the morning once calmer heads prevail." It was not a request. It was a command. Olivia looked at Julian, expecting him to stand up for her. Instead, he just nodded once. The rest of the Vance kin parted as Olivia followed Julian down a long corridor, the portraits of stern-faced ancestors seeming to judge her every step. The prisoner of Newport, the East Wing of Eleanor's estate, was no less opulent than the rest of the manor. Lush carpets, antiques from Europe, and windows offering sweeping ocean views. But for Olivia, it felt like a prison. She collapsed into a velvet armchair, her emotions in turmoil. Julian stood across the room, stiff and silent. At last, she couldn't bear his silence any longer. "Why did you drag me here?" she demanded. "Is it so your mother can strong-arm me into pretending everything's fine?" Julian walked to the window, gazing out at the darkening sky. "You shouldn't have come," he said quietly. "I tried to warn you." Olivia let out a bitter laugh. "Warn me? About what? That your family wants to keep your transgressions hidden to protect their precious empire?" He turned sharply, eyes burning. "Don't you see? I'm caught between you and them. My mother controls the board. She controls entire segments of our company. She's not a woman to be trifled with." Olivia rose, crossing her arms over her chest. "And what about your affair with Isabella? Or is that part of the family plan too?" Julian's expression darkened. "I'm not discussing Isabella with you. That's over." Stunned, Olivia reeled. "It's over? Then you admit there was something?" He swallowed, his gaze flitting around the room. For a moment, Olivia thought she saw regret in his eyes, but it vanished. It happened, all right, but it was a distraction, one I'm not proud of. Hurt and rage whipsawed through her. She clenched her fists. "A distraction from your pregnant wife?" His shoulders sagged. "You don't understand the pressure I've been under. I never wanted to hurt you, but my life has always been orchestrated by the family. Our marriage was the only thing I thought I had for myself, but even that became tangled in family obligations." Olivia felt tears at the edge of her eyes. "So you ignored me for weeks, letting me worry about whether you even cared. Do you have any idea how isolating that felt?" Julian squeezed his eyes shut. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words barely audible. A surge of conflicting emotions welled up in Olivia. Love, betrayal, pity, anger. She took a shaky breath. I hired a divorce attorney. He looked at her, eyes wide. You did? She nodded, tears escaping. Yes, because I won't live like this. I won't raise a child in this cold, superficial world. He said nothing for a moment, then sank onto a nearby chair, head in his hands. The weight of his secrets and his mother's demands seemed to crush him. Olivia watched him, remembering the gentler man she had first fallen in love with. As tension cloaked the room, the door swung open suddenly. It was one of Eleanor's staff, a woman named Clara. Ms. Reynolds, Madam Vance demands an immediate audience in her office, Clara said, averting her gaze from the emotionally charged scene. Olivia steeled herself, exchanging a glance with Julian. He nodded numbly. Without a word, they followed Clara into the labyrinthine corridors, bracing for whatever judgment Eleanor had in store for them. The standoff. Freedom or submission. Eleanor's office was a fortress of power. Dark paneled walls, shelves lined with books on corporate law and economics, and an imposing mahogany desk. She stood behind it, hands clasped, eyes like steel daggers. I have consulted with the family's legal advisors, Eleanor began, her voice echoing in the stillness. We are prepared to offer a generous settlement to Olivia, with full child support, under the condition that she drop any public accusations and sign a strict non-disclosure agreement. Olivia's blood boiled. So I'm supposed to accept hush money in exchange for my freedom? What about the emotional abuse, the affair, the humiliations? Eleanor's cold gaze swept over her. Julian has made mistakes, but so have many powerful men. Our interest is preserving the Vance name and ensuring that your child is raised with proper support. Julian stood to one side, his face drained of color. Olivia's voice trembled as she replied, You can't just buy me off. I won't be silenced. Eleanor offered a thin smile. In that case, we'll proceed with more aggressive measures. The Vance legal team is relentless. If you try to go public or drag this through the courts, we'll ensure your name and reputation suffer. We'll bury you in litigation. Olivia's hands shook, her mind reeling. She could see the trap Eleanor was laying. Accepting the money would make it appear she was complicit in covering up Julian's wrongdoing. But rejecting it meant wading into a legal quagmire, an unfair fight against an empire. She glanced at Julian, silently pleading for him to intervene. Finally, he found his voice. Mother, please don't threaten her. She's carrying my child. Eleanor's gaze flicked to him, as icy as ever. I do this for your benefit, Julian. Emotional entanglements cloud judgment. The family's fortune and reputation are at stake. A tense silence settled. Olivia could hardly breathe. Then, with shaky resolve, she broke the stillness. I won't sign anything until I've spoken with my own lawyer. Eleanor eyed her like a predator, sizing up prey. Very well, but be aware that time is of the essence. Refuse our terms, and we'll have no choice but to move forward with a defense strategy that could annihilate your standing. Her words rang in Olivia's ears like the final toll of a bell. She turned on her heel and left, Julian trailing behind her. She heard the door click shut, sealing Eleanor away. The hallway seemed to press in on them, suffocating in its silence. When they reached the East Wing suite, Olivia whirled around to face Julian. What are you going to do? She demanded, tears brimming. Are you going to stand by while your mother threatens me? Threatens our child's security? He swallowed hard, looking older, wearier than she'd ever seen him. Olivia, please, he whispered. Let me handle this. She shook her head. You've had every opportunity to handle this, and you've done nothing but keep me in the dark. He glanced away, guilt evident in his downcast eyes. I don't know how to fight her. She holds the controlling shares. She shaped every aspect of my life, my education, my career, even our marriage. Olivia's heart twisted. She wanted to hate him, but she also saw the terrified boy behind the powerful man. Still, she couldn't allow his terror to dictate her future. She placed a hand protectively over her belly. If you can't stand up to her for me, for us, then I'll do it alone. His shoulders slumped in despair, but he said nothing further. That night, Olivia lay awake, staring at the moonlit ocean. Her decision was forming, solidifying with each breath. She knew she would file for divorce. The question was whether she could escape the Vance fortress unscathed. What would you do in Olivia's shoes? Fight for your freedom, or try to compromise? Share your thoughts below. The escape and the unexpected truth. The next morning, Olivia awoke to find the door to the east wing locked from the outside. A jolt of panic shot through her. She rattled the handle, heart pounding, until a maid arrived carrying a breakfast tray. The young maid, eyes downcast, avoided Olivia's questioning gaze as she slipped the tray in. "So this is how Eleanor deals with adversity," Olivia said coldly. "By imprisoning me?" The maid remained silent, but as she turned to leave, she whispered, "They want to keep you here until an agreement is made." She quickly fled, leaving Olivia stunned and furious. Hours later, Julian appeared, face drawn. "Mother insists you sign the NDA before leaving," he said, shame in his eyes. "She's worried you'll go public." Olivia squared her shoulders. "I'm not signing anything without my lawyer present." He gestured helplessly. "She won't allow your lawyer onto the estate, and she controls all flights off the island. The Vance jet is grounded until you comply." Fury erupted in Olivia. She realized Eleanor was staging a mini coup, using her power to coerce Olivia into a favorable deal. But she also knew that Newport had public ferries. The Vances might try to intimidate her, but they couldn't shut down an entire island's transportation. She inhaled slowly, formulating a plan. "I'm leaving," she declared, "even if I have to walk to the ferry." Julian's eyes widened. "She won't let you. She's posted private security." Olivia's voice rose. "I don't care. This is kidnapping, Julian. I refuse to be held hostage by your mother." Before he could argue, she brushed past him, striding down the corridor. Indeed, 2 security men blocked the main entrance. Olivia's heart hammered, but she refused to falter. She stared them down. "Are you prepared to assault a pregnant woman if I try to leave?" she demanded, her voice shaking with rage. "Is that what the Vance legacy stands for?" The guards exchanged uneasy looks. They were likely instructed not to resort to violence, at least not in a way that would stain the family's image. Sensing their hesitation, Olivia pushed forward. They parted, perhaps more afraid of a lawsuit or negative publicity than Eleanor's wrath. Once outside, Olivia moved quickly across the estate's manicured lawns, ignoring the startled glances of staff and relatives milling about. She was nearly at the gates when a black SUV pulled up, blocking her path. The driver's window rolled down, revealing Eleanor Vance herself, austere and commanding. "Don't be foolish," Eleanor snapped. "Where will you go? Are you going to call a taxi? There are none near this part of the island. And even if you make it to the ferry, how will you manage without your luggage, your money, your phone? Everything I can cut you off from." Olivia glared at her, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'm not your prisoner. You can't lock me away. I will find a way to the ferry. I'll beg a ride from a stranger if I have to. I'm done living under your tyranny." Eleanor's nostrils flared in anger, but she hesitated. The last thing she wanted was a public scene. Finally, she spit out her words. "Get in the car. I'll drop you at the ferry, but don't expect me to save you from what happens next." Olivia stared at her, weighing her options. Walking alone down the roads of Newport, heavily pregnant, might be dangerous. After a tense moment, She climbed into the SUV. The ride was filled with suffocating silence, Eleanor's anger palpable. When they reached the ferry dock, Eleanor brought the SUV to a halt. "This is your last chance," she said coldly, thrusting an envelope at Olivia. "The NDA and a preliminary settlement. Sign it or leave with nothing." Olivia took the envelope, opened the door, and stepped out without a word. She slammed the car door, hearing the SUV's tires squeal as Eleanor sped away. Despite her pounding heart, she felt a rush of liberation. Clutching the envelope, she boarded the ferry, determined to reclaim her life. The ferry ride felt surreal, salt air stinging Olivia's cheeks, the boat's engine rattling as she left the aristocratic fortress behind. She gazed at the horizon, praying that the life growing inside her would someday know a happier reality than the one she had just escaped. Once on the mainland, she used a payphone. Her own phone service, courtesy of the Vance family plan, had mysteriously been cut off. She called Maya, who agreed to pick her up and drive her to Manhattan. During the ride, Maya was both appalled and fascinated by the dramatic showdown with Eleanor Vance. "I knew the family was powerful," Maya said, weaving through traffic, "but I never imagined they'd go to these lengths." "They're prepared to do anything to keep their image intact," Olivia replied, leaning her head against the window. "I need to move fast before they try something else." Maya took her to a small boutique hotel owned by a friend, who owed Maya a favor. It was modest compared to the opulence Olivia was used to, but she felt an immense sense of relief stepping into a room that was hers alone, where she could lock the door without fear of intrusion. First, Olivia contacted Evelyn Grant, her divorce attorney, recounting every detail of her forced stay at the Newport estate and Eleanor's intimidation. Evelyn's usually calm tone sharpened with anger. "This is a violation of your personal rights," she said, "and it sounds like an attempt to coerce you into signing legal documents. We need to file for an emergency restraining order if they try to approach you again." Exhausted, Olivia agreed. She hung up and sank onto the bed, letting the tension ease from her shoulders. Maya placed a gentle hand on her arm. "You're brave," her friend said softly. "Not many people stand up to the Vance family." Olivia managed a small smile. "I don't feel brave. I feel scared and alone, but I won't let them bully me." Maya squeezed her hand. "You're not alone. You have me, and you have this baby, and we're going to fight." The public eye and a hidden truth. The next morning, word spread that Olivia Reynolds had left the family estate. Social media buzzed with unconfirmed rumors. A few paparazzi shots even surfaced of her on the ferry dock, looking distraught. Eleanor Vance, unaccustomed to losing control, released a terse statement to the press, claiming Olivia was undergoing medical rest due to pregnancy complications, and that the family valued her health above all. Incensed by the blatant lie, Olivia composed her own statement through her lawyer, refuting Eleanor's claims and stating she was safely in Manhattan, preparing to take legal action. The tabloids latched onto the drama, splashing headlines like "Vance heir in marital crisis," "Pregnant wife flees family compound." Amid the public frenzy, Julian reached out to Olivia for the first time since her escape. She was in Maya's car, heading to an obstetric appointment, when her temporary phone buzzed. Her heart hammered. Should she answer? She took a deep breath. "Hello?" A pause. "Olivia, it's me." She forced calm into her voice. "What do you want, Julian?" He sounded strained. I want to talk, face to face, without lawyers. Just us." She hesitated, recalling the anguish she had felt in Newport. But she also remembered the flickers of regret and sorrow she had seen in his eyes. "Fine, we can meet somewhere public." They arranged to meet at a discreet cafe in Midtown. Olivia insisted on having Maya wait nearby, just in case. When she arrived, Julian was already seated, looking tired and lost in thought. The bustling noise of the lunch crowd cocooned them in anonymity. "You look well," he said softly, eyes flicking to her belly. "How is the baby?" "Healthy as far as I can tell," Olivia replied, bracing herself. "What do you need to say, Julian?" He looked around, as if fearing hidden microphones. "Mother thinks you'll drag the family name through the mud. She's pressuring me to take legal action first, to accuse you of defamation, mental instability, anything to undermine you." Her stomach clenched. "That's despicable." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I told her I wouldn't. I can't. You're my wife." "Not for much longer," she cut in, voice trembling. "I've decided to move forward with the divorce." Julian winced but nodded. "I understand. I want to make sure our child is provided for, and if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of their life." Olivia felt tears brim, her defenses faltering. "That depends on you, Julian. It depends on whether you'll stop lying, stop hiding behind your mother, and actually show up." He reached across the table, tentatively placing his hand over hers. "I know I've failed you, but I'm trying to break free from Mother's control. I never wanted it to come to this." She withdrew her hand. "Words won't fix it. Actions might. If you truly want to be involved, then cooperate with the divorce. Don't let your family's attorneys tear me apart." Julian's eyes glistened. "I'll do what I can." For a moment, they shared a fragile silence, the gravity of their shattered marriage pressing down on them. Then Olivia stood, feeling a surge of resilience. "I need to go," she said. "I have a doctor's appointment." He nodded, gaze dropping to the table. As Olivia left, she felt a complex mixture of relief and sorrow. The man she had once loved was still in there, but he was shackled by a legacy he seemed powerless to escape. She only hoped that, for the sake of their child, he would find the courage to stand up to Eleanor. The final break and a new beginning, with Julian's promise to not wage war, Olivia proceeded with her divorce filing. Evelyn Grant's firm finalized the documents, citing irreconcilable differences and detailing the emotional neglect and financial misconduct in the marriage. They meticulously outlined evidence of Julian's affair with Isabella Thorne, as well as potential financial improprieties within the Vance empire. On a cool Tuesday morning, a courier delivered the divorce papers to the Vance Group's headquarters in Manhattan, ensuring that not just Julian, but also the entire board, would be made aware. The tabloids had a field day, broadcasting the headline, "Pregnant Vance wife officially files for divorce. Billion-dollar battle looms." Frenzied reporters camped outside the Hamptons mansion and the corporate offices. Olivia, however, remained in her small hotel room, her stress exacerbated by paparazzi occasionally hounding her for a statement. Maya did her best to run interference, and Evelyn Grant continued to reassure her. Amid the media circus, Olivia received an unexpected call. Dr. Alan White, her OB-GYN, wanted to see her immediately. Concerned, Olivia rushed to the appointment, Maya by her side. The doctor explained that Olivia's blood pressure was elevated, a risky condition during pregnancy. "You need to limit your stress, Olivia," Dr. White advised gently, noting the tension that seemed to radiate from every fiber of Olivia's being. "Keep hydrated and try to rest. You're putting both yourself and the baby at risk." After the appointment, Olivia broke down in Maya's car. "How can I reduce stress when Julian's family might throw everything they have at me?" she sobbed. Maya handed her tissues, voice gentle. "You're doing the right thing, Olivia. Just take it one day at a time. The media frenzy will die down eventually, and legally, Evelyn's team can handle the brunt of it." Olivia nodded, wiping her tears. She was determined not to let the Vances break her. For the sake of her unborn child, she would find the strength to stand firm. Days turned into weeks, and the legal battle heated up. Julian's attorneys attempted to refute claims of the affair, spinning narratives that Isabella Thorne was merely a hired designer for the penthouse. Eleanor Vance, however, largely stayed silent in public, focusing her efforts on manipulating board decisions that could corner Julian and pressure him into forcing a quick resolution. Olivia attended multiple court conferences, leaning on Evelyn's expertise. During a particularly tense negotiation, Julian appeared in person, flanked by his lawyers. Olivia braced herself for a cold showdown, but he surprised her by taking her aside during a recess. "I've been trying to liquidate some of my personal assets," he said, voice low and urgent. "I'm going to put that money into a separate account for you and the baby, away from Mother's control. It's not hush money, it's support. My way of apologizing." Olivia studied him. She could sense sincerity in his words. "I appreciate that," she said quietly. "But it won't change the fact that I need this divorce. We can't keep living in shadows and lies." He nodded, exhaling a shaky breath. "I know, He trailed off, eyes flicking to her belly. "Please keep me updated on the baby." Her throat tightened. She recalled the man she used to laugh with, the man who once seemed so genuine and full of life. Now they stood on opposite sides of a yawning chasm. She fought a sudden urge to hug him, to share in the excitement of becoming parents. But the wounds were too fresh. As proceedings continued, Eleanor Vance began employing more underhanded tactics, even threatening to question Olivia's mental fitness as a mother in a rumored custody fight. Enraged, Olivia's attorney countered with evidence of the emotional abuse and controlling behavior from the Vances. The battle lines were drawn so firmly that it felt like no resolution was in sight. One night, as Olivia lay awake in her hotel room, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was trembling with urgency. "Olivia, it's David Chen, Maya's private investigator contact. "I've uncovered something that changes everything." Heart pounding, Olivia invited him to speak freely. David explained that while investigating the Vance Group's financials, he stumbled upon evidence that the family might be involved in illegal offshore tax evasion, and that Julian himself had tried to put a stop to it. Eleanor apparently orchestrated these schemes for years, funneling portions of the company's profits into secret accounts. Julian, in an attempt to separate himself from the illicit activity, had started secretly liquidating his own assets to protect himself and, in a sense, Olivia. From the blowback, stunned, Olivia sank onto the edge of the bed. "That means he wasn't ignoring me all those weeks. He was dealing with this." David hesitated. "He did have an affair, from what we can tell, but the deeper secrecy seems tied to the family's potential crimes. He might have been trying to shield you or to orchestrate a defense plan. If the authorities catch wind of this, it's massive." By the time Olivia hung up, her mind reeled. Could Julian have been more complicated than she'd imagined, both betraying her emotionally and trying to protect her financially? The confusion weighed heavily on her. She thought back to all the cryptic phone calls, his rushed disappearances. Perhaps they weren't all about Isabella. Maybe they were about extricating himself from Eleanor's schemes. Faced with this new twist, Olivia reached out to Evelyn Grant. They strategized that if Julian was indeed seeking to distance himself from criminal activity, Olivia might use the information as leverage for a swift divorce settlement, ensuring she and her child were completely free of the Vance Empire's unscrupulous dealings. But that also meant treading carefully. Accusing a powerful family of financial crimes could put a target on her back. Armed with David's findings, Olivia and Evelyn arranged a confidential meeting with Julian at the law firm's office. Julian arrived alone, looking visibly stressed. Evelyn opened the discussion. We have reason to believe there are illegal offshore accounts tied to the Vance Group. Olivia could expose this in court, which would result in an investigation by federal authorities. Julian's face paled. His voice hushed. How did you— Never mind. Yes, my mother has been running that operation for years. I didn't discover it until after we married. She orchestrated everything so carefully that it took me a long time to gather proof. Olivia asked softly, Why didn't you tell me? He rubbed his temples, looking defeated. I was scared that if you knew, you'd be in danger, or that you'd hate me for being part of it. And I was trying to stop it from the inside, but I got tangled up in deception. I needed a release, and that's when Isabella happened. It was stupid, reckless. A heavy silence followed. At last, Olivia spoke, voice tremulous. Julian, I can't undo your betrayal. But for the sake of our child, I want a divorce that frees us both from your mother's manipulations and her crimes. Are you willing to come clean? Cooperate with the authorities if it comes to that. He stared at the floor, tears glinting in his eyes. Then he nodded slowly. I'll do it. I'll sign whatever I need to sign to ensure you and our child are safe. I'll testify against my mother if necessary. Just promise me I won't lose any chance to be part of my child's life. Olivia felt tears of her own threatening. She reached for a tissue, glancing at Evelyn, who offered a small, supportive nod. You'll have that chance, Olivia said, voice shaking. But you need to be honest from now on. Julian nodded, relief mingled with sorrow in his expression. I will. Freedom forged from fire. Within days, the final divorce papers were drawn. Both sides agreed to a substantial financial settlement for Olivia, as well as joint custody arrangements that would allow Julian visitation rights, provided he kept to a strict code of conduct. Most importantly, the settlement included a clause that released Olivia from any liability tied to the Vance Group's offshore accounts, effectively shielding her and her child from potential legal fallout. Eleanor was livid, but she found herself cornered. If she tried to retaliate, Julian could reveal her financial schemes. If she cut Julian out of the family trust, she risked losing control of the board, since the scandal would rock the company. In the end, she grudgingly signed the documents, though she made her contempt for Olivia painfully clear through icy glares and biting remarks in private emails. On a sunny afternoon in Manhattan, Olivia and Julian met at the courthouse to finalize the divorce. Olivia wore a simple beige dress, her belly now quite pronounced. Julian, in a subdued navy suit, approached her with a rueful smile. Reporters buzzed outside, cameras clicking relentlessly. When the judge asked if both parties were certain they wanted to proceed, they each answered resolutely, yes. The gavel struck, and just like that, the marriage was legally over. Julian lingered, seeming to want to say more. Olivia gave him a gentle, parting look, her anger and grief interwoven with a faint thread of sympathy. Then she turned and walked away, the hush of finality settling over her heart. 2 months later, Olivia sat in her modest but cozy new apartment in Manhattan, sipping herbal tea and gazing out the window. The city bustled below, a cacophony of horns and sirens. She rested a hand on her now heavily pregnant belly, feeling the baby kick. Every day she reminded herself of how far she had come, from being a neglected wife in a lonely mansion to a woman forging her own path, free of illusions. She had reconnected with her parents, who were thrilled to visit and help with the baby. Maya remained her rock, visiting often, bringing groceries and cheerful banter to lighten Olivia's mood. Legally, the settlement from Julian provided a substantial financial cushion, enough for Olivia to ensure a stable future for her child, without depending on the Vance empire. Julian, for his part, kept to the terms of their joint custody agreement. He called weekly to check on the baby, carefully maintaining a respectful distance. He also quietly cooperated with authorities, investigating Eleanor's financial activities, though it would be months or even years before any real legal consequences for the Vance matriarch emerged. In her quieter moments, Olivia reflected on the whirlwind she had endured. Love, betrayal, power, and vulnerability all had collided in a cataclysm that nearly broke her. But she realized something crucial. Every challenge, every heartbreak, had forged in her a resilience she never knew she possessed. She had learned to stand up for herself, to value her worth, and to protect her child at all costs. As she felt another swift kick, a small smile tugged at her lips. A new chapter awaited, a chapter in which she would be a mother, guiding her child with the warmth and compassion she herself once feared she had lost. No matter what the future held, she would face it on her own terms, free from the shadows that had once imprisoned her in that Hamptons mansion. Life rarely unfolds as we plan, and sometimes the biggest trials lead us to our strongest selves. Olivia's journey from a bewildered pregnant wife in a cold mansion to an independent mother forging a brighter path proves that no obstacle is insurmountable when you stand up for your worth. In the end, she broke free from a marriage overshadowed by betrayal, discovered hidden strengths within herself, and ensured a safer future for her child. As Julian grapples with the aftermath of his family's secrets, Olivia moves forward with a new sense of purpose and resolve. If you enjoyed witnessing Olivia's triumph in the face of life-altering struggles, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps us bring you more riveting tales of resilience and redemption. Stay tuned for the next dramatic journey, one that may spark hope or caution in equal measure. Sources: